Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to have an amazing interview with Dr. Guillermo Morales. He is the founder and CEO of Innoventyx. He is heavily focused on drug development and commercialization and brings just a wealth of knowledge and experience, especially given how everything is changing with the influence of AI. And Guillermo will share just an amazing perspective on where the puck is going, to quote Wayne Gretzky. And so Guillermo, just to get things kicked off, could you just share your journey and how you came to found your company?
Sure, absolutely. And first, thank you for having me, Dario. Appreciate it. Uh, so I started my journey 30 years ago. After I graduated with a PhD in organic chemistry, I had the fortune to go into a pharmaceutical industry right away. And during my career, well, then 20 years later, I got my MBA. And I started as a scientist in the lab in my career, making drugs, compounds, to alleviate diseases. And eventually, 5 years later, after graduating in 2000, I got the opportunity to co-found my first company in the Bay Area with a good friend of mine. And it was when I just jumped into the business side of things from the lab, uh, going to pitch to investors, fundraising, establish a company. And it was a very great opportunity to see now, how science can evolve from just an idea to actually something that can happen through a company. Very learning experience. We're very successful with the company that we were doing two things, uh, creating computational models, almost like the AI of today, to using a lot of data from chemistry, from biology, toxicology, pharmacology, you name it, and have the system indicate what compounds should be made for what particular target and disease. And we were very successful with that. And ever since I just got the business bug, as I moved through my career forward, I continue consulting and sometimes working for companies full time. But in 2016, I decided to start my consulting firm, Innoventyx, working internationally with companies of all sizes, uh, on projects that can go from ideation all the way through development, commercialization, and help the clients, with challenges facing the development of a scientific project as a product, because it has to have a commercialization end. Also, uh, creating and strengthening the intellectual property that is absolutely necessary in this industry, including patent busting for them to give them an edge. Fundraising, because money capital is needed to accomplish all of this, whether it's getting money from capital investors or non-dilutive sources like grants. And we ultimately also help investors with due diligence, looking into a particular opportunity that they're interested in and see the operation side of the company of interest, what IP they have, the documentation, and help them de-risk their investment.
Cool, cool. So I thought what was interesting when we first met was that you were really early to the data science game.
Mhm.
And a lot of the approaches now that people are thinking and talking about, you were kind of doing that. It wasn't called AI or whatever, but you were doing it. And I think what's interesting, Guillermo, is that we had talked about data fragmentation and the impact of that on preclinical drug development. Um, how have you seen this fragmentation impact decision making, and maybe just give us an update on the current state of it?
Right. Well, fragmentation has always been a challenge when it comes down to utilization of data, especially using it for in some computational aspect models, etc. Um, Typically, in preclinical drug development, you want to generate relevant data that can be um, uh, reliable and reproducible, while at the same time be very good indicators as to what you would like to see in the clinic, when it's given to people. You don't want to kill people, but you want the drug to be efficacious and as beneficial as possible. The challenge is that all this data can come from different sources, generate with different methodologies in the lab, different type of metrics being used, or on how data points are measured. Can be percent inhibition, can be concentration, can be a time point. But at the same time, what is it that it was used to generate the data? Was it human-derived tissue or protein, or sometimes is used like an animal model that had to be used for generating that data? And it really takes a great effort to make sure that that data can be standardized and very well understood, because there's always the devil is in the details, and you want to know when you're going to be utilizing a data set, if there variability in error measurement, error bars, the type of the curves that sometimes are generating. I mean, this is what is an indication on the quality.
Right.
And that's just because having a number in front of you doesn't tell you the whole story.
Well, it's interesting because, again, there's a lot of buzz around AI-enabled drug development. And of course, in many cases, to some extent, AI is still a bit of a black box. Although, does that sort of worry you that maybe, people will get lazy and think, oh, the AI is going to do this all for me. And meanwhile, you understand that the quality that goes in is necessary in order to get quality insights coming out.
Yes, it's yeah, you need to be sure that you can understand the best that you can what the AI is telling you. Um, Neural networks is one of those that it's almost like a black box, because the system automatically say that is without using intervention, okay, fine tune itself. So the outcome, you don't know how it was generated, and you're hoping that that is going to be reproducible, because from the moment that you start adding more data, maybe that initial result that you got is not going to be the same. Might change better or could go the other direction. So it's always like I say, it's you got to know how to use a tool,
Yeah,
because just because you buy a scalpel doesn't make you a surgeon,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
You can be very dangerous with that, or you can make amazing things, with it. So it's about knowing the tool, the capabilities, and the limitations. And one of them is not just the limitation of the approach itself, but again, what data you're using, and what is it that you intended um, to predict. Is that something that is going to be in an area that is very well understood? There's a lot of data around it, or you are predicting a parameter that might be just difficult even in the industry as of today to predict, where the only way to know for sure is by going into the lab and measuring yourself, or someone measuring that particular parameter.
Right, right. So you've worked at the intersection of business and science throughout your entire career. And when we consider how rapidly biological knowledge evolves with new proteins and pathways discovered regularly, how does this moving target nature of biology challenge traditional drug development timelines?
Well, this can have a huge potential impact on the timelines. Uh, yeah, because this constant biological discovery can bring to light a biological entity, or let's say a pathway in the cell that was not known before or not very well understood. And it's a good thing that you know it, but now you need to figure out what is the biological functionality, of what you just discovered, that you just realized that is coming as a key component into your mode of action of interest for a particular disease. And it can be that maybe has no impact at all. That's a possibility. Is there, but when it comes down to a disease perspective, has no impact. But frequently, you have the situation where it does play a role, and the role now can be either beneficial, or can be a challenge. It can be beneficial if it is something that, now that you understand from a biological perspective, further clarifies why the molecules that you're developing, why the drugs work the way that they do. And and it's something that that plays a role. It helps, and now you can put that piece of the puzzle in place. On the other hand, if it could be something that might lead to, let's say, unwanted side effects or toxicities.
Yep.
Because in cancer, for instance, it's very common for cancer cells to develop, a way to get around a particular drug therapeutic.
Right.
And this case could be a protein that maybe it is driving the disease, in the cell, the cell mechanism. Yeah. Or it's something that if you impact it, might just cause another pathway to take over. And now you're dealing, with multiple pathways, and and from a scientific perspective, the therapeutic approach has just got more complicated.
Right.
So it's very important then to understand the best that you can, how these, new players come into your, into your situation, into your mode of action, and it is going to put you in a situation now where either you have to develop the biology to understand all of this, or maybe someone else is developing the biology. But either way, you have to be aware of it, and hopefully you are in a position to do something about it.
So it seems to me with AI, one of the benefits might be the ability to synthesize large amounts of biologic discoveries, right? Like think about academic journal articles and scientific journals. Like you hear a lot of that on the medical side, right? So like there's no way that a doctor can process all of the information that's coming out, but the AI potentially can help synthesize all of that. Do you see that as an emerging sort of maybe benefit of AI, Guillermo?
Yes, to a certain degree, and because what you mentioned has two aspects. It has the synthetic aspect, as going into the lab and making molecules, and then how these molecules are going to function, in a cell, ultimately in vivo, right?
Yeah.
And it's very interesting because from the chemistry side, again, in being my PhD organic chemist,
sure.
There are many variables that are measurable, but there are many variables to predict the outcome of a chemical reaction. I'm very enthusiastic that AI is being utilized now for predicting chemical reactions. I'm just hoping that the efforts can really lead to very predictable models, because when it's time to generate data to feed a model, just from the chemistry perspective, you're going to find that, well, you need to define in a single reaction how many chemicals are going to react. Two, three more. Let's say two, just for simplistic purposes. So you have two molecules. Now you have to take into consideration in which solvent you're going to dissolve compound one, what solvent you're going to dissolve compound two, which one is going to go into the flask or into the reaction vessel first, which is going to be the second one that you're going to be adding to it. What is going to be the speed of addition? It's going to be slow. It's going to be fast. Are you going to be doing this with heat, room temperature? What's the temperature you're going to use? How long you're going to keep it? Is it in the atmosphere or not? Just air? That's another variable. Are you using a catalyst?
Yep.
What type of catalyst? How pure the catalyst is? And ultimately, it's going to play a function of where the reaction is going to take place with these molecules. Let's say that for molecule one, it's going to react at the tip end of it. And for simplistic purposes, let's say that there's nothing around it. It's very simplistic. So the other component is going to come and react, and it's going to give you a particular reaction yield. But maybe in the future, you want to use a compound that is similar to compound one, but at the tip where where the reaction is going to take place, now you have variations, substituents that might be big, might be large, might be bulky.
Yeah.
Maybe those are going to have an impact on how well or how slow or how fast that reaction takes place now, just by making that change. And ultimately, it's going to come down also to the scale of the reaction. There's a difference between trying to make 100 milligrams, 1 gram of compound, and now needing to make a kilogram of it or 100 kilograms, like reaction scale, because when you go big, everything goes big. If the reaction releases a little bit of heat, might not be a big deal when you make it in small scale.
Yeah.
But when you go industrial scale or large scale, I mean that heat generation can just get out of hand and might create really complications. Sometimes, let's say explosions or something.
Yeah.
So everything just changes. So even when it comes down to making AI, to using AI just to try to predict chemical reactions. You even have to define, is this AI is going to be for small scale early drug discovery, or are we talking about, process chemistry, large scale? Because the same chemical reaction will have to be done on the different parameters. So yeah, but the fact that there is more efforts in looking into all of these details, I'm really hopeful that AI can really make a significant impact on that. So yeah, fingers crossed that we can see breakthroughs in predicting chemical reaction outcomes with AI that are close to the prediction.
Right. Cool. Well, this has just been a really fascinating interview so far, Guillermo. Thanks so much. We'll just wrap up here. Kind of again, given the state of AI and drug development, what are maybe 2 or 3 takeaways that you'd like to leave the audience with? So these would be, commercial leaders and whatnot in biotechnology and life sciences companies.
Yeah, so I'd say that, well, AI is here to stay. And something that I believe is that validated data, trustable data is gold, is AI gold. And generating that data, I'm seeing trends where companies themselves are generating internally, are putting a lot of investment in generating their own data because then they can get to standardize the data, trust the methodology, all of that. Also, I'm seeing collaborations happening where now there's research institutions, research groups are working together in generating that data in a way that they understand themselves how this is, generated, so they can utilize, the results for their own AI purposes. So ultimately, whether it is a biotech that is using AI or a pharma company that is using AI, AI is going to help a lot. Hopefully, you can really, do a lot of heavy lifting. But ultimately, yeah, the outcome that is going to measure and determine the future, like I said, of a company is going to be the type of drugs and quality of drugs that they make.
Right. Excellent. Wow. Well, that's just outstanding advice. Thank you so much, Guillermo, and all the best of success going forward.
Thank you so much, Larry. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.